In modern gaming, what counts as a role-playing title? Is it an upgrade tree system, the dialogue wheel, or the simple act of gaining experience points to level up? Often, it all boils down to the bare minimum, shallow systems designed to give the illusion of player reward and investment. A few years back, I made a video called The Hollowing of Video Game Role-Playing. The AAA scene had been very disappointing in the latter half of the 2010s. In RPG Lite, choice and narrative consequences were scaled back, customizing your character's look and personality was extremely limited, and variations on playstyle were mostly superficial in nature. The industry had forgotten what made role-playing so memorable, removing much of the complexity and depth. I and many others were left wanting, searching for the true successors to games like Fallout New Vegas, the Mass Effect trilogy, and The Witcher 3, but too many titles came up short. Starfield was a massive disappointment from Bethesda, BioWare continued to flounder with Dragon Age: The Veilguard, and while CD Projekt Red managed to redeem Cyberpunk 2077 over time, The Witcher 4 is a long way off. By comparison to these RPG-like titles, full-blown RPGs have several key strengths. Dialogue options carry genuine weight and narrative consequence, your character type and backstory have a direct effect on the core action, skill trees and perks offer genuine upgrades beyond basic stat improvements, quests are all detailed and comprise multiple characters and locations, most NPCs have distinctive characteristics and mannerisms, settings offer multiple activities that run alongside great presentation, and core mechanics serve the gameplay rather than feeling superficial. It turns out I had been looking in the wrong place. True full-blooded RPGs still exist, you only have to look towards smaller studios and the indie scene. They rise above the larger companies in so many ways, with lower budgets and pouring all of their effort into crafting a quality title. Let's take a look at some of the games that are keeping the genre alive. Exhibit A, Kingdom Come Deliverance. To start, RPGs can let the player engage with the game world in a number of ways. Conversations often lead this, but some games go a step further, incorporating various gameplay systems to generate more immersion. Going from one character to the next and talking to them with the occasional shop vendor in between is rather basic and doesn't add much to the experience. In 2018, Warhorse Studios stepped up with their debut title, a medieval RPG that had been in development for almost 7 years with a ton of crowdfunding to boot. The story of Kingdom Come Deliverance is relatively straightforward. In the medieval landscape of Bohemia, Henry of Skalitz loses his parents along with an all-important sword and seeks vengeance. Across 29 main missions and more than 50 handcrafted side quests that don't rely on busywork, the game is split between core gameplay and extended cutscenes. For the former, KCD offers a range of control schemes and mechanics. Many of them are far more complex than your typical role-playing game and bring up instruction screens as you play. This is your first clue that the title is going further than most in the genre. Great RPGs offer multiple ways to engage with missions. Most AAA efforts rely on gauntlets of standard combat with some very light variation in dialogue options. Kingdom Come Deliverance takes a deeper and more satisfying direction. Take this early quest in the prologue. Henry has holed up in a neighbouring castle after his home is razed to the ground. He wants to go back into dangerous territory to bury his parents, but how he accomplishes this is up to you. You can sneak into the guard tower and lockpick a crate for a disguise, use speech checks to convince the guard to let you go, or even commit a crime and get thrown out of the settlement on purpose. The way the game layers all of these choices early on is a great set of training wheels for future objectives. The graphics and overall presentation aren't the best in class, but this is a case where the commitment to history and core gameplay makes the title stand out. The studio was focused on planting the player into the world, with many of the interactions informed by the social propriety of the early 1400s, with multiple stores, different classes of people, and tools to interact with. If Henry is covered in mud or blood, he receives a debuff to the speech skill with his poor appearance. If he wastes a trader's time and constantly tries to renegotiate a sale, they will lose their patience. If he commits a crime and avoids prison, he will suffer a loss to his general reputation. These little systems working under the hood are often far more important than making grandiose set pieces. At a time where so many AAA games have you flick through menus to craft or enhance your weapons, Kingdom Come Deliverance stays focused on player interactivity as well. Sitting at the grindstone requires both precision and stamina. This serves as a helpful alternative to buying repair kits and also gives you a sense of what it was like to maintain weapons in that time period. This commitment also applies to other systems like lockpicking. Rather than copying the competition, Warhorse was keen to carve out its own niche, asking the player to be more precise. In short, Kingdom Come Deliverance feels more rewarding to play, and it doesn't try to cater to a general audience. This is especially true for sword combat, which relies on precise swings and blocks, standing apart from every other medieval title on the market. Kingdom Come Deliverance may not have received the highest scores on release, but it stuck to its guns and stamped its studio onto the scene. With the recent arrival of KCD2, this is a franchise that goes far beyond its RPG contemporaries. It doesn't streamline or simplify for the sake of mass appeal, and makes no compromises on its setting and central mechanics. Rather than narrowing the scope, there's ample room for Warhorse to expand in future. Exhibit B, Disco Elysium. RPGs are often deeply focused on story, and crafting a memorable outing boils down to intrigue and strong writing. The AAA scene has settled into a rather predictable rhythm, often defaulting to giving the player something to shoot, with little nuance or depth in between. Generic heroism often replaces narrative choice, stifling much of the player's expression. To buck this trend and deliver a gaming experience like no other, Disco Elysium arrived in 2019. Written by Robert Kurwitz and drawn from the art of the band Sea Power, this RPG is all about dialogue and conversation rather than direct combat. You play as a police detective named Harrier Dubois, who wakes up from a drunken stupor with no memory. Already there's an excellent canvas at play. Who is this man? What are his personal beliefs? How does he go about solving a murder investigation? That's entirely up to the player, and what follows is a deeply fascinating mystery that doesn't need combat or big climactic moments to make an impression. When compared to games with larger budgets, this one is leaps and bounds ahead when it comes to engaging the player. It starts with the initial attributes: intellect, psyche, physique, and motorics, which go hand in hand with 24 skills. This affects the protagonist's health, mental weight, and overall performance in skill checks. At a time where many RPGs have streamlined or completely eliminated these attributes, Disco Elysium embraces this crucial tenet and places it on a traditional isometric viewpoint. As you find out more about the characters and the wider world, the sense of intrigue grows. Rather than feeling like you're going through the same monotonous motions, there's something new to discover around every corner. NPCs, potential clues, and points of interest are all clearly marked. Rather than having to painstakingly scan or read every pickup, everything unfolds naturally. Running on a smaller AA budget, the developer put their focus on the items that matter most in the genre. The simple setup allows the studio to place role-playing front and center. The script is deeply fascinating, and the voice acting is superb from everyone involved in the final cut. In addition, your character's stats and mannerisms are always on display, with a myriad of checks. The game could have stuck with the dice rolling and left it at that, but traits like perception are woven in so seamlessly, another variable depending on which type of character you choose. Your version of Harrier could be a super intelligent, nervous wreck, or he could be a smooth-talking chauvinist, which brings different outcomes. All of this is placed against a phenomenal backdrop that you want to explore every last inch of. As a result, Disco Elysium doesn't need additional activities to keep the player occupied. Underneath all these components is the Thought Cabinet, which ties in directly with the detective's fractured mind. As he slowly collects his memories and crafts a persona, other musings creep in. One interaction with a fascist strongman who bars your way at a police checkpoint can lead the player character to support eugenics, for example. The sheer number of thoughts the protagonist can internalize is exhaustive, covering all sides of the political and philosophical spectrum. They also offer positive and negative effects that are directly incorporated into the experience. The entire game is unapologetic when it comes to weaving in contentious ideologies, handling each of them with great maturity. Ultimately, Disco Elysium deserves every one of its accolades. It's the kind of project that could only be made through immense talent and creativity. The game rejects the cynical corporatism of big-name franchises and delivers a singular experience. We're unlikely to see anything like it again for a long time. Exhibit C, Baldur's Gate 3. Last but certainly not least, a true RPG goes far beyond linear and open world titles by offering player choice. Choice in what character build they want to run with, choice in how they treat other characters, and choice that results in hefty, world-shaking consequences. No modern entry in the genre has accomplished this more than Baldur's Gate 3. It puts every single one of its competitors to shame and set the standard for what a modern RPG can do. More than 2 decades after Baldur's Gate 2, Wizards of the Coast were reluctant to let Larian Studios take the reins at first, but after being impressed by their work on Divinity Original Sin, they got the green light to make a 3rd entry. The reception was overwhelmingly positive from critics and players alike. It also represents a resurgence in the Dungeons & Dragons role-playing system. Outside of remasters and re-releases, this rule set was a rarity in modern gaming, and BG3 showed that when you use the system effectively, it will garner a massive audience. Dice rolls and many dialogue options will govern the journey, and with 1.3 million voice lines and 140 hours of cutscenes, the size and scope dwarfs every other RPG on the market. As soon as you start a new game, you know you're in for something special. Character creation has become very common in modern titles, but in many cases the differences can feel superficial. Not so for Baldur's Gate 3, which offers a wide range of races, classes, backstories, and character builds. Some players spent hours on this opening section, and the studio also opened up to the modding scene, which greatly expanded the initial foundation. As you chart a course through the realm of Faerun, every questline, every character you meet, and every combat sequence is memorable and engaging. There is no tedium to be found throughout, and the game will always leave you wondering how differently events could have played out, prompting many additional playthroughs. This also applies to the character builds with a range of feats that correspond to your playstyle. A mage can add new spells to their repertoire, while archers and warriors can apply additional damage effects and greater advantages in combat. These perks go far beyond basic percentage increases and damage numbers. Another key highlight of Baldur's Gate 3 is how it doesn't hold back from evil choices. Larger developers seem to be afraid to let the player embark on a mean-spirited playthrough, making the most callous choices possible every step of the way. The dark urge that hangs over your protagonist throughout the story can lead to many shocking turns and unexpected moments, including horrifying outcomes for all of your companions. Like any great RPG, outcomes and absences are all taken into account, the script changing direction to reflect the player's decisions. On top of all that, Baldur's Gate 3 has cooperative multiplayer, building on the success of the developer's previous work. Rather than being a throwaway mode or an excuse to rip the player base off with microtransactions, Larian took great care to ensure seamless integration, allowing players to start their campaign with online features enabled or switch them on mid-playthrough. Useful measures like being able to send idle players back to camp allows the action to continue unabated. Having achieved the most coveted Game of the Year award in 2023, Larian Studios showed that when you create a true RPG with immense depth, tons of show-stopping quests, and no added baggage, the genre will find great success. When you put all 3 of these titles together, you understand why they became so successful. There are no tacked-on modes, no grinding, and no added fluff, just pure single-player campaigns that you can play and replay for hours. The AAA sector would do well to take note of this approach. Thanks for watching. Kingdom Come Deliverance, Disco Elysium, and Baldur's Gate 3 have led the charge for video game role-playing, but which other titles do you recommend? Stick them in the comments below. You can find this video's predecessor and others like it on my channel.